So this damage is completely unethical, coming from a random build that I get to play due to the build roulette challenge that I create for myself in preparations for the PoE 2 0.3 patch announcement. This is not going to be a build guide, just me talking and sharing about this interesting experience. I want to show you how you can use what I shared to help you get through the campaign in the next patch using a homemade build to do it. For this challenge, I get a random Ascendancies and a skill to play. And I ended up with Pathfinder and high velocity rounds. The idea here is to go through this experiment in a solo self-found environment to simulate and leak stat scenarios and not to trivialize the challenge. I'll go over my thought process, ideas, and what's important to help you get a smoother campaign. And who knows, this might end up being my league starter for 0.3. So, because the Pathfinder is a great ascendancy for poison damage, I'm going to pick poison as the main damage type for the setups. It just so happens that I have some previous experience with poisons and a bleed crossbow build from 0.1, so I kinda know the strengths and weakness of the setup. If nothing changed in 0.3, Frostbomb is still the premium choice for level 1 skills because it has the highest flat damage and you can use it on top of other skills. Then we'll pick up Contagions as a way for us to spread our early game poison damage. It's very good for AoE clear. So I killed a snake, picked up a level 2 skill gems, then picked up a support gem as a quest reward, picked up a crossbow, craft fragmentation round to use with the envenom support, and then I am ready to go with a poison setup. Being a ranger in the early game playing a crossbow build is very beneficial because these proj damage early game helps a lot. And for the AoE clear, you can kind of see I put down Frostbomb, cast Contagions, and I try to shoot the enemies with the poison damage to spread it around. It helps a lot with the early game AoE clears, and especially in red builds where people have a lot of problem. We easily take down the Rusted King for a level 3 skill gem picked up, which we are going to craft HBR, and then our journey will officially begins. Or not, because we don't have enough strength, but we'll pick up a passive point for that a bit later. The stats I'm looking for in the early games are rarities on my gear and movement speed on my boots. Rarity will help you get better gears and even unique items, and movement speed for the campaign is just the best stats. My early game setups is going to have HBR with scatter shots and venoms and Contagion with Unleash. Contagions only cast once, so having Unleash will help you hit the target easier. HBR by itself pierces a lot of targets already, so you will have an easier time hitting the Contagions targets. And also HBR by itself is great at single target DPS. We kinda have both AoE and single target DPS covered, so we're off to a pretty good start in my opinion. And to make it even better, Count Lachlan dropped the Everlasting Gaze amulet and also the upgrade to my crossbow. I'll be using this amulet until the end of the campaign because it gives me a lot of mana regenerations, so I don't really have to click on the mana potion anymore. We are getting a spirit gems from King of the Mist, and because we will be playing a poison build, Blackbearer is the logical choice here. Later on, after we get Gas Grenade, it's going to be a lot easier to stack up the Blackbearer stacks. We actually don't have to wait that long because Executioner questline drops a level 5 skill gems, and you can use it to craft gas grenades and support it with corrosion so we can start breaking enemy armors. With gas grenade in our setups, I think the core components of our builds are already finished. Essentially, gas grenade is helping us breaking the enemy's armors and stacking up leg bearer. So my early game damage is starting to fall off right here because I don't have any flat damage from my ring and my weapon is just not really upgraded at this point. So I ended up having to go into phase 3, which is I've never seen it before. You can kind of see him go into the fog here and they're still using that skills. I'm not actually sure if this is a bug or not, but it kind of caught me off guard, so I almost died there. It was a bit of a struggle, but we managed to do it. In my experience, I think HVR together with Envenom and Scatter Shots does not really work that well because we don't have enough flat damage yet, and Scatter Shot kind of reduced our hits damage. So the poison ended up not doing too much. For the passive skill tree, we ended up grabbing all the damage node, go through the strengths, and go straight beeline into stacking toxins to get that extra poison stack on top of the enemies. The boss ended up giving us the unique spear, which would be great for Rake and Stomping Ground, but I'm pretty sure that thing is getting nerfed in 0.3, otherwise I would probably pivot at this point. Alright, moving on to Act 2. We have Wrathbreaker as the first boss. Arguably, this guy is harder than the Act 1 last boss. He's very tanky, he do a lot of damage, and he summons a bunch of ads that just bum rushing you. So overall, just save your AoE skills and you should be fine. When you are playing an attack build, it is very important for you to keep your weapon upgraded with a lot of flat damage on your rings and anywhere, really, rings, glove, and even amulets. This is a lot different from playing an assault-based build where you can kind of stack your damage by upgrading your gem level. You can kind of see my damage is falling off a little bit, so at this point I was desperate for crossbow upgrades. I checked the vendors, and there it is. This isn't the insane crossbow, it has increased physical damage and +3 to proc skills. Basically everything I could have asked for at this level. If I have a Regal Orb and Exalted Orb, I'm going to slap it on this crossbow. I know we had a loot buff patch recently and I didn't have a lot of unique items. I did not get any Regal or Exalted Orb for the whole Act 1, so that was a little bit weird. Nevertheless, most of your best item is probably gonna come from the vendors, especially if you are doing it on League Start, so make sure you always check the vendor. Killing Barbala and Jamandra will get you ready to join the Ascendancies trials. We want to do this as soon as possible because we want to get Contagious Contamination. This is helping us getting rid of contagion so we don't have to press the one extra button. And at this point, I made a huge mistake by turning on HDR, which you can kind of see the color kind of messed up for OBS. So from now on until like Act 3, where I realize this is a problem, it's gonna look a little bit weird. But anyway, you should not have to worry about the first trial. It is pretty easy, so we just kill the boss here. Ascend to be a Pathfinder, picked up Contagious Contaminations, and then we are ready to go. The next area is going to be Mastodon Badlands. You're free to pick up any of the area here. There are Mastodon Badlands, Valley of the Titans, and Keth. We are doing Keth last because it has the best layout, and if you're doing it last, it has the highest monster level, so you can kind of catch up in XP there. I choose to go down the route of armor and evasions, and surprisingly, I'm quite tanky at this point. When I say armor and evasion, what I really mean is just armor and evasion gear. We don't have the luxuries of spec into defensive node at this point yet. My focus is just damage because I'm playing on softcore, and my defensive is just basically upgrading my gear. Maybe the build is coming out pretty nicely, but maybe it's still weapon doing the carrying. Nevertheless, I had a pretty good time in Act 2. A lot of the AoE damage is just done by Poison Prolif and Plague Bearer, which make it feels a lot comfier than a lot of build that I have played. A lot of the build is going to have like base weapon upgrade at certain levels. So for crossbow, at level 26, you get access to alloy crossbow, which is a pretty good base. I happened to pick up a really nice increased physical damage one, and I decided to use my Regal and Exalted Orb to upgrade it even better. Now I'm ready to finish Act 2. Here's a quick clip of the Poison Prolif and Plague Bearer in actions. It is not as fancy or pop as the Hero of Ice, but it's very effective and it helps a lot in AoE clear, especially if we are using HVR as our main skills. So I swapped to the new crossbow, it's doing a lot of damage. We do have a little bit of flat fire damage at this point, so whenever we ignited the enemy, our gas grenade do get pop. Later on, there is a support gem called the Domain, but it's a tier 2 support, and it helps your gas grenade do not get destroyed by any flat fire damage. That way, your gas grenade can continue to break enemy armors and helps with the HVR damage. Usually, I farm myself up to level 31 before going to the Act 2 boss, but because I feel pretty confident at this point, so we just push forward because we have a pretty good crossbow. Now, I do want to add that if you are able to get more flat damage from your ring slots, it would go even smoother, which I don't have. I just have a pretty decent crossbow with a bunch of elemental damage, not even like full physical. Poison only scale with the physical and all chaos damage, so the elemental damage is purely there just for the flat hits. If this is Trade League and this is at League Start, I'll try to get myself a really nice flat damage ring and weapons using all my Exalt or even Regal Orb, because slamming on weapons in Trade League is kind of criminal. This is my passive trees coming into Act 3, pretty much grabbing all the damage node and the poison nodes, and yeah, that is the damage that we are able to do at this point. My gear is just nothing too special. Mainly it's the weapon doing all the damage, and everything else is pretty standard SSF gear. I added the mobility support for the gas grenade to get one more poison stacks on top of my other skills, Preg Bears with some AoE and damage skills, and I picked up Ripwire Ballista as well to have some sort of pin. But other than that, everything is pretty much the same. We have scatter shots, martial temples, and venom on our HBR. A good rule of thumb to follow whenever you are progressing through the campaign is just to try and stay about 2 level under the zone. You can see the zone here is level 34, so if I were to ding 32 here, it would be pretty good pace. And try to keep this pace until you have to fight the Ag boss, which is where you want to farm a little bit of level and stay about 1 level within the zone. What I don't understand about this zone is that I always get baited and I always have to explore the whole area before I even find the drought. And there it is, the hidden passage in the top right corner where I have gone through like at least twice. For the Venom drought, I think mana regen is a pretty good option for early game, but ultimately in the end game, you probably want to pick up the elemental ailment threshold. Now stun threshold, we do have a stone charm for that, and mana regen we can probably fix it elsewhere. So the only logical choice would be the elemental ailment threshold for me at this point. And I realized that HDI was a problem, so I turned it off and we welcome back some really nice coloring. And we kill the monkey and get some extra skill points. This is where we fight the Chimera, and I also decided to go into the Trial of Chaos right after this and get our second Ascendancy points, which should give us a lot of power. The Trial of Chaos by itself is not that hard. All you need to do is to have a little bit of patience and everything will be fine. The monster itself, the missions, everything is pretty easy. At least we get the easy boss here. This guy pretty much doesn't do anything, or you cannot really die from him. The only thing he can do is pretty much fly around. And that's a wrap. We picked up overwhelming toxicity and move on. At this point, we had access to level 9 skill gems, and you can start picking up tame beasts. Having a tame beast options to pick up some of the beasts with aura can be pretty helpful early on, especially if you run into the extra physical damage aura. Otherwise, I'm going with Wind Dancer for the spirit gem picked up. And I almost died right here. This guy can be quite dangerous. He do a lot of AoE and damage. At this point, my damage is starting to fall off once again because I'm still using a level 26 crossbow. So this is where you kind of want to look for another upgrades. And by looking for another upgrades, I mean either craft, get lucky, get it drops, or buy it from vendors. But yeah, this is way better than my level 26 crossbow just because of the flat physical damage. Flat physical damage is pretty much all that matters when it comes to playing this kind of build because we are not focusing on the elemental damage. And yeah, the damage is looking pretty good at this point. I think the buff to crossbow is really good, just getting like 2-hander damage from the crossbow buff. I didn't really play crossbow in 0.2, so this was a pretty nice change of pace, and I feel a lot better than when I was playing in 0.1. At this point, I think I kind of realized that having Wind Dancer doesn't help too much, so I'm trying to swap back into Shark Scavenger later when I picked up another Spirit Gems. And then I encounter a Viper bug that I've never run into before. I think I was using the totems and it kind of pinned her outside of the arena when she was in her animations, so she just gets stuck there. Other than that, this was a pretty easy fight. I remember the first time I had to do this on a crossbow and it takes me like half hour to do it. So this went a lot smoother than I thought. Going into the last zone of Act 3, just want to showcase a little bit of AoE here. And you might have noticed I also picked up Hailstorm Brown for testing. It is nowhere near as strong as I thought it would be, especially because we are not really playing an elemental build. But if we were, this might have done a lot more damage. So anyway, I just want to have some cooldowns in my skill set, but otherwise just spamming gas grenades and spamming HBR should be the way to go at this point. This fight took me about 3 minutes. And it was a lot better than the first time that I played this on a crossbow. I think that fight took like 6 to 7 minutes. So yeah, crossbow really get buff in 0.2. This is where the build kind of come together, as we're getting all the damage node as possible, and we are going deeper into the poison nodes. After getting that, we will be a lot better in sustain as well as doing damage. For our skill gems, we added Hailstorm Round, but like I said, it's not really that useful. And then I have the same setup, essentially, except for Plague Bearers, we add the Unbreakable so we don't get stuns. For Gas Grenade, I also added Domain so the flood fire damage doesn't kind of explode the gas cloud, but everything else is the same. And moving on to Act 4. Now we kill Beira, and she dropped us a pretty nice elemental crossbow. This gives me the idea of using Hailstorm Round as a sub-skill, like you technically can stack multiple Hailstorm Rounds, just like you stack multiple Freezing Salvo, and it can be pretty good. Anyway, at this point, I was a little bit under level, so the Red Veil in Act 4 is a pretty good place to catch up in level. You know this Obelisk of Rust where you clicked on it and it spawned a bunch of magic monster? You can respawn a checkpoint as long as you don't finish them off, and then you keep resetting this until you get to the level that you want. Ideally, you want to farm this place until you get to roughly level 45, and that should be good. So this is where I kind of embrace the meme of using multiple Hailstorm Round. And when I say multiple, I just use 2, and I don't even bother spec into the elemental damage node. But it turns out pretty decent. I ended up just kind of dropping them a bit later because it's too many buttons to press. So I bind the crossbow attack on the left clicked, and then I can bind as many Hailstorm Round as possible on as many buttons as I can. And I can just reload swap into it, shoot it, and then all of them will reload separately. I'm not even sure if this is gonna survive the patch, but if it is, maybe if you are playing an elemental crossbow build, this can be pretty interesting. I can totally see that you are running around with like 6 or 7 rounds of Hailstorm Round, and they just reload independently, so you always have them up, and you would instantly one-shot rare and bosses and a lot of monster packs. So this is where I had my first death. Act 4 Executioner is actually quite rippy. Also at this point is where I kind of dropped the idea of stacking the Hailstorm Round because I want to focus on the poison damage. If this is Trade League, I'm pretty sure at this point my crossbow would be way better than this. However, I feel like the poison damage is really starting to ramp because I have put more points into the ailment damage, durations, magnitude of poison, and everything. Before the Act 1 boss, I want to farm a little bit to get to level 49, just about 2 level under the zone. If I had problem, I would probably farm all the way up until level 50, but luckily I did not have that problem. Keep in mind that at this point I was still using a level 38 weapon, so it is severely under level. And so yeah, I just need to get a better crossbow and everything should be fine. And this is why you always check the vendor. So after killing the Act boss, we get back into the vendor and we get a really nice crossbow upgrade. Of course, I still need to upgrade this with Regal and Exalted Orb, so I'll probably get to use it a little bit later into Act 2. I thought I was dead here, just took my hand off the keyboard already, but luckily I'm still alive. For this boss, if you use Blade Bearer at the right time, it's going to make the fight a lot easier. So yeah, we really need to get that crossbow upgrade because the damage is abysmal right now. Speaking of which, we get another pretty good base, so we are going to try and slam all of them. My problem with SSF, because I'm not really used to playing it, so I don't really pick up gear with socket, but you're supposed to pick them up and salvage them all to get that orb to put back sockets into your weapons. Socket on the weapon is very strong because you have access to rune that can put more flat damage on your crossbow, and ultimately it is going to be the decider because even a bad base when you put more flat damage can outshine a better base. What I do at this point is I put my character into PoE and then I copy these weapons into PoE to see which one is better and decide that based on the damage, and this one is the best one right now. And with the weapon upgrades, everything feels a lot smoother and we're starting to cruise again. Just when I thought this build cannot get any better, This guy dropped one of the best items that I could have in the campaign, which is the Ming's Heart. Now this ring is insane because it adds so much chaos damage into our build, and they all convert into poison damage. So yeah, overall, we just add like 30% more damage at the cost of our defense, which is just how I like to play it. I want to play glass cannon characters. Speaking of which, at this point, we have also removed Wind Dancer, and I have added Shark Scavenger back into the build. Now this instantly reload your crossbow, so you can have a bunch of free HVR shots whenever you consume the armor brick. As it happens, the HVR consume armor brick by default, so it just does not change your rotations. Everything is the same except you get a bunch more free shots and you do a lot more damage. Which is also when I realized I could have done this a lot earlier and having a lot more damage in our kits. You know what I really want at this point? I want to have an actual physical damage crossbow. I'm still using like mixed with elemental damage and just one line of physical. If I were to have like a double fizz roll on my crossbow, this boss would be a joke. Maybe this is why the elemental damage build is quite popular, just because how easy it is to roll elemental damage on these weapons. And this is what my passive skill tree looked like in the end of Act 5. This is my current weapons. It has a bunch of elemental damage and the rune is pretty bad. I'm using like, typical rings, have some flat damage on ring and glove, but that's pretty much it. Look at that rip by Ballista, tanking the monkey for me. What a chat. Unsurprisingly, my second visit to the Venom Crypt also ended up having me exploring the whole map until I can find the passage to the actual draught. If this is your lick starter, getting the chaos resistant is pretty good, but I ended up having the +5 to all attribute because I have some attribute problem at this point. And our end of the campaign bowl coming from the most random vendor in the game. This bowl have high physical damage, accuracies, +2 level pro skill, strength, and also have another prefix that we can slam. So we're definitely picking this up and we'll start using it at level 59. After this boss, we get 40 spirits, which I'm going to be using Wind Dancer with precisions. And finally, we get to level 59 and we can start using the crossbow that we picked up earlier. I have also slammed this with an Exalted Orb and get a line of the cold damage. It's not the best, but it's going to be a lot more damage than the previous crossbow. At this point, I feel like my gear is just average at best. Or maybe it's good for the SSF environment, I'm not really sure. But watching this boss melt in like under 20 seconds feels pretty good. This is where you kind of get the Eureka moments where your build is working out, everything is working together nicely, your damage is coming out together, and you are one-shotting the boss left and right, and you are ready for map. Toward the end of the campaign, I picked up a new beast. This beast basically have all damage can shock, so I have perma shock on the boss. It is not that important, and what I would really prefer is to have the extra physical damage aura. That would really give us so much more damage because the majority of poison damage is coming from physical damage. You can really see our damage or poison ramping over here. The boss is gonna get pinned from our ballista. The HVR by itself, we do 3 shots and it's gonna put 3 poison stacks on top of the boss without any source of extra durations for ailments from the passive skill trees or the jewels. The base poison duration is about 2 seconds, so I assume if you were to optimize it in such a way that you can keep up perma stacks on the boss and have a pretty fun hit and run playstyle with this HVR setups, it can works pretty well for the end game. And yeah, you already seen this Viper kill in the beginning of the video, but this Viper kill is roughly like 30 seconds, and also the smoothest Viper kill I have ever had in the campaign. This is what my skill tree looked like after getting the last 2 points of the campaign. Overall, you just want to be extremely efficient, grabbing as many damage nodes as possible, and we're probably going to do some respec later on. And this is the final boss. This kill rivals a lot of the meta build setups out there. Remember, this is SSF, and my gear is not really the best, and I'm really rushing through the campaign right now, being like 2 level under every zone. I know the patch note is not out, but there's nothing really there to be nerfed in this kind of build, and I don't think crossbow is getting nerfed, or maybe poison is getting nerfed at all. Pathfinder is definitely not getting nerfed, so hopefully it turns out pretty well. Maybe I give you guys some ideas. I'm not even sure what is my league starter yet until I read the actual patch note. This was meant to be a fun build where I kind of refresh my game knowledge. As for me, I'll probably get some sleep. I'm gonna upload this video just a few hours before the actual live stream. From what I have heard, this is going to be the biggest patch. But I mean, we only have 2 patches so far. But yeah, hopefully we get some Act 4 content, new class. New content is always good. I can only hope that the new Ascendancy or class or, you know, build, sword, dagger, whatever is coming is good. Because I do enjoy playing new build. But I do want to make sure that my league starter is strong, because I want to have a strong league starter so we can snowball into the league having enough currency to reroll into whatever build that we prefer to play. And with that, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.